It's historic because it brings in, a lot of people who are non-traditionalists, right? You have RFK Jr., you have Tulsi Gabbard. These are both people who would be considered Democrats.
I'm proud to stand here with you today, President Trump, and announce that I'm joining the Republican Party.
You have Pete Hegseth, who's coming in, totally asymmetrical pick for Secretary of Defense, somebody who has on-the-ground combat experience, but doesn't have what a lot of people see as the institutional rot that comes with higher level military appointments.
We're putting the warfighters first. That's what Donald Trump asked me to do. Your job is to bring a warfighting ethos back to the Pentagon.
So he hasn't been a general, for example, and that's, maybe unusual, but and Lloyd Austin, our current SecDef, he was a general, whatever, but then he was a Raytheon executive. Then he came in to become Secretary of Defense, and Raytheon stock has tripled since then. So you have somebody who's not in the pocket of any of these large military industrial contracting companies simply due to his lack of, I guess, gravitas in the business world to them. He wasn't useful to them in the business world. They never thought he would be selected for this position. So I think that was Trump's sort of coup de grace here because he was able to look at maybe Eisenhower's speech in the 50s warning about the military industrial complex.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
And he saw everything that happened with his first term. He had Mad Dog Mattis in there. He even brought in John Bolton. He brought in all the people who were suggested to him, and that didn't work out as he had hoped. And definitely for America looking for detente, especially with Russia, North Korea involved, as North Korean troops are in Ukraine right now, you need somebody who's going to be asymmetrical. So I think that's the biggest takeaway I would put from this. You have people like Pam Bondi as well. She's a real fighter, somebody who a lot of Floridians like myself might know, but internationally doesn't have the name recognition.
Prior to being Attorney General of Florida, I was a career prosecutor for 18 years. I've prosecuted hundreds of jury trials.
It's almost like a MAGA version of the Avengers, and it's going to be a very interesting cabinet. If you look at Kristi Noem, she's in there.
Freedom will make America wealthy again.
Doug Burnham, he's going to be the Secretary of the Interior, which is taking care of managing the lakes and the resources of the country.
To unlock the best of America, we need a leader who's clearly focused on three things: economy, energy, and national security.
And these are very competent people. Like, I can confidently say these are people you would want to have in these positions. And it looks to me from an ideological perspective to be a bipartisan cabinet in a much more not in the bipartisan way like Republicans and Democrats, but ideologically bipartisan. You have people who disagree. You have some people who are much more nationalist, whereas other people like Marco Rubio are going to be more traditional people in the Secretary of State role. So Trump did a good blending and mixing, and I think that's what's going to be the secret sauce here, the melting pot, proverbial melting pot, if you will, of them. So it's a whole new cast. And there's going to be a lot of new people coming into Washington as well, because you have about 4,000 political appointees. So there's going to be a big changing of the guard in the city, and hopefully that indicates the draining of the swamp. The actual swamp draining will come from people like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy with their Doge network and actually cutting down the federal government and dispersing some of these agencies. People were a little bit surprised by some cabinet picks. You have a lot of people who we say Republicans in name only, but I can flip it around and I can say, MAGA in name only. And then you saw the infighting that came between Elon and the whole X people regarding the H-1B1 visas and Trump. Like, where is the country going? There's been a power struggle. Is it going to be the billionaires who supported Trump, or is it going to be the real people who voted for him? And I think that a lot of that's going to come out in the wash. A lot of that was happening pre-inauguration. Trump allowed, people to have their voices heard. But for the most part, what I'm gauging is overwhelming 80% support of his cabinet picks. And the people who aren't supporting those cabinet picks are some of the more hawkish neocon style Cheney, even though Dick Cheney is a member of the Democrat Party now, thank God, may he never come back. Still, people, who were of that old ilk, I think maybe were disappointed that we were going to be pulling back. There are some people I know who for some reason, they really enjoy the concept of killing Russians and like old Cold Warriors. And, you see Lindsey Graham out there talking to people saying, yeah, well, at least our money is killing Russians. And that's because there's a quadrant of American voters who are still believing in that, but they don't represent the majority of the Republican Party. The Republican Party has become a big tent. It's become more ethnically diverse. It's become much younger. For the first time ever, we've had a male vote. There never was a male vote. It was always a disengaged, sort of listless group. There was a female vote. Now we've created a male vote. We got young men involved. And I think all of that's coming together to, build more discourse and come to a better result. But I think the people are happy with it. They trust Donald Trump. We're going to get behind him and push him. And I think the greatest thing about it is he's love him or hate him or however you do, it's over in 4 years. He can't be president any longer. So you might as well work with the gentleman and see where you can get, because he's certainly put himself out there, been through a lot. I think he earned a lot of people's respect that he didn't have the first time around, which might be what gets him over the hump regarding the American political sentiment. He's coming into this presidency with his highest ever personal approval rating as a candidate, and Joe Biden is leaving with his lowest ever personal approving as a president. So I think the ideology has swung, and now it's up to Trump to deliver. I think that this is the first time that Trump has got everybody on the same team. He's been accused. I've been doing the BBC and stuff this last few weeks. And I said, Errol, is he going to appoint loyalists? I said, no, he's going to appoint his enemies. What do you think? Yes, he's going to appoint loyalists to his ideology. And that ideology is an ideology of peace, and it's an ideology of trade. When you look at what he talks about with Greenland.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time.
That's all about the trade routes through the North. When he jokes with Canada about the 51st state.
You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada.
Well, we do subsidize almost all of Canada. No, we aren't going to actually take them as a state, but everything has to do with that northwest passage. And so reestablishing the U.S. as a hegemonic sea power, but reducing our footprint on the ground, whether that be in Sudan or in other places where it's confusing to the Americans, why are we here? But when you have a common sense president there who's looking for, above all, low energy prices. When you buy an apple at the store, the price isn't the apple. The price is the shipping, the picking, the refrigeration, the packaging, and all of that is tied to how many kilojoules of power you can produce in a region per day. And if you can reduce that cost, you can reduce the cost on everybody. So the real people who are going to benefit from this all are going to be the non-stockholders. 9 out of 10 Americans don't own stocks. The majority of our voters do not own stocks. You get your uplift at the pay pump and at the grocery store. If you get a buy one, get one free, that's 50% off. That's a 50% uplift. And while that might sound condescending to somebody who sits in a banking office, that's a real talk between middle-class families in America. And I think his cabinet, like you mentioned, because they're all united behind him, are going to be able to get that across the line this year, or at least we hope, because we really need it.